God is in the authorship of calling people to follow Him. And so this morning we see that very thing play out with another man named Levi some couple thousand years ago during the life and ministry of Jesus. And so we're going to see Jesus call someone out into the kingdom. If it helps you kind of follow along the storyline, we'll see really the calling, how it takes place. And then we'll see the response to that call ends up being a big party. And then when there's a big party in the name of Jesus, usually there's going to be people that complain about it. And so you're going to see the complaint. And then we're going to see inside this small passage and story of Scripture, we'll look at it more probably next week, is out from that also comes the great mission of Christ. He makes it very clear once again about His mission, why He has come. And it ties to what we just sang a minute ago. We're in desperate need because of our sin that separates us from God. And how God is holy, and how can we be in the presence of a holy God? But yet God in His grace, His favor, and His mercy, His love towards us, He reached out to mankind and drew mankind into Himself through Christ. And so it's a beautiful picture of the gospel. We see it unfold in the story of Levi. And so we'll walk through the story just a little bit at a time, and maybe beginning, as I mentioned, with the call of Jesus to Levi. It doesn't give us all the details of what was going through Levi's mind, but I think probably some things that were sung this morning are some of the things that maybe had been going through his heart and his mind when he encounters Jesus face to face. So in verse 27, the calling is unfolded like this from the writer Luke, Dr. Luke. It says, after this, and that referring back to a few weeks ago we saw Jesus was in the Capernaum area and he healed a paralytic. And so he had that story unfold, and now that story is behind this, and probably still in the Capernaum area. It says, after this, he went out and he saw a tax collector named Levi. If you think about going out, typically a tax collector might set up on the, sometimes like about 4 miles outside of Capernaum, major thoroughfares where tradesmen and merchants would be coming into the community to sell their goods. And so a tax booth would be set up outside the city limits, if you will, to collect the taxes as you come in. It's very possible it could have been set up by the Sea of Galilee because there was a tax on fishing to gather money. But somewhere in this journey, probably near Capernaum, Jesus is out about, and he comes in contact with this man named Levi. He's a tax collector. We'll come back to that in a moment. And it says that Levi was sitting at the tax booth, and Jesus said to him, "Follow me." There's probably more of the story, but Luke wants us to see that he simply gave the words, "Follow me," and then the response of Levi is this: and leaving everything, he rose and followed him. I mean, just in the nutshell of that, it's like, well, how does that happen? How is that even possible? How does someone who has probably an established role of authority and power and influence and wealth, as we'll see, tax collectors were typically wealthy in their community, how does he just all of a sudden leave everything and follow Christ? And we know that leave everything, for the most part, for this tax collector, I don't know all of the story, it probably meant leave everything, and he left everything because he becomes a follower of Jesus. His life is radically changed. God does not always call everyone to leave their profession, for example, when he calls them to Christ. But the things that were probably an idol for the tax collector Levi, he was transformed, changed. He begins to follow Jesus. And Luke wants to make that clear in how he tells the story. But Jesus just comes up and says, "Follow me." And he follows him, leaving everything behind. It's just hard to imagine. We've been seeing in the Gospel of Luke that Jesus has authority and power like no one else, which makes him unique and special, what makes him God. He has authority and power over sin, authority and power over Satan, authority and power over demonic oppression, authority and power over the physical realm. We've seen the authority and power of Jesus Christ displayed in many ways up to this point in walking through the Gospel of Luke. And now we see his unique, distinct authority and power to simply call men out, and they do what? They follow. They leave everything behind. The things of man. So the authority and power to call someone out, and they simply leave the heart of what they're all about. I can't know all about Levi. He's not given to us. We'll be able to interact in heaven to see how drastic this change was, but he just simply leaves everything. I don't know about you, but sometimes I find it hard to leave even the smallest of things. The things that maybe are important to me, to leave them behind. Like, maybe God's calling me this way. Well, I'm kind of tasked over here, Lord. And maybe a simple analogy for me would be yesterday, I was in Holly Springs in North Carolina. It's a suburb of Raleigh. And had the chance to take my son Levi out to late lunch yesterday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, and went to Wild Wings. You know, there's not a Wild Wings in Clarksville, if you haven't noticed. there's not a whole lot of restaurant choices. And so rarely, I don't know, a couple times a year, we're out of town, hey, let's need to go to a neat restaurant, try something different. And so we picked Wild Wings for lunch. And I knew they had wings, wild wings, right? You don't really have to be a rocket science here to understand they probably sell chicken wings. But they have a lot of cool things on the menu. But I didn't choose wings at the Wild Wings place. You know what I chose? A barbecue sandwich. They had like a new one they had created, and it just looked wonderful. And it was kind of two parts to it, like a big piece of bread and roll, and they cut it in half. And they had barbecue on this side, and they had barbecue on that side, and it all looked good. It was a little bit high price-wise, like, well, but what I'm going to do? I had a plan. I said, I don't want to eat that all in one setting. I'll be uncomfortable today. I'm going to eat half now, and then save it till tonight or for lunch today, and eat the other half later. And I got all excited about it. I'm just telling you, I was excited about the opportunity, and it all planned out. Well, I enjoyed the barbecue sandwich. It came, enjoyed it. It was good. It was delicious. Really hit a home run, right? And I thought, cool, I got half left, right? Levi had some left over, and so we put it into one of those containers, right? And so there's all kind of things that will distract you inside that store, that restaurant, TVs and sports stuff. And so we were watching a Little League baseball game, and it was over, time to go. And so we're leaving. We get out to the vehicle. It was like in a strip mall area. We needed to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, and so I don't think we were more than what seemed like 30 seconds away from Wild Wings, heading to Dick's Sporting Goods, behind the building, and then it hit me like, wait a minute, I'm missing something in my life. And I realized it was my barbecue sandwich. I left it on the table, right? And so what do? You go back for barbecue, just in case. It's a kind of a side note. You go back for it. And so we circled around the building. I come back, and I said, Levi, hop out and run in there and see if the barbecue's still there. And so he ran in there, and he came back. He's walking out. Nothing's in his hands. I'm thinking like, no. This can't be, right? And so I charged Wild Wings. No. So I'm thinking, don't give me the answer. And he said, they already threw it away. They had just thrown it away. And I said, well, my mind seemed to, well, did you dig it out of the trash can? I mean, it was in a covered thing that had the locking thing on it, foam, but it was like, that's what I would have probably done. And I'm thinking like, no way, right? Oh my gosh. And so I'll be honest with you, I struggled leaving the sandwich behind. I thought about going in there and checking the trash can. Like, well, it can only been like 30 seconds ago. I kid you not. It'd be my weakness. It stayed with me to Dick's Sporting Goods. Because not only the sandwich, I'm thinking, well, you know what? It was like, it's a little bit expensive, so I kind of thought, my mind thought, well, it was not bad if it's like feeds 2 meals, so, and I was like throwing money away. I thought I just threw like $6 away in the trash can. I'm thinking, like, are you kidding me? It's like, I don't like doing that. I can be a good steward. I'm like, And so it stayed with me to the sporting goods store. If we get a testimony time, maybe I'll tell you what took place at Dick's Sporting Goods later. Not today, because God blessed me. I had to pray it up. Like, God, that kind of hurt. And so maybe you got some grace at Dick's Sporting Goods, and he did. That's kind of a side note. I'll come back to that some other time. But it's hard to let things go, right? It is. And Levi tells me he just left everything. I'm walking away. And so like I'm sure he's got his change, his money. I don't know if he took something with him. He's got the ledgers, the books and all. It's just, I think the implication that Luke wants us to know that spiritually he just walked away from it. God's got something different for me, and he sends a call in his life. And so he just goes. And so that in and of itself, it tells us something, not so much about Levi, but so much about Jesus. Jesus, there's something unique and distinct about him. And when people spiritually hear his voice, genuinely hear his voice by the Spirit of God, the effectual calling goes out, they respond to that calling. And so he just walks away and he leaves. And so it says something about who is this Jesus, right? How does that even happen, that folks just will do that and walk away, and there's something unique and distinct about him like no one else. And as I've already shared, whether it's my son, a number of years ago at age 7, whether it's Levi a couple thousand years ago, whether it's today, God is still in the calling out business. And maybe business isn't the right word. He's in the calling out, eternal, redemptive, life-changing work. That's what he does. If you're in Christ and you're here today, you've been called out by Jesus. You've been called out by God. The effectual call has gone out to you. Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus, he says in chapter 1, verse 4, he says that our salvation, our groundedness in Christ and eternal realities, that's been decided upon by God from the foundations of the world. Before that time frame, God knew we would be his, and the call has gone out, and God's still calling people to himself, and He's still doing that today by His Spirit. He calls people out. He lets the message of Christ go out, and by His Spirit He's calling people in unique and distinct ways. We've seen over the past couple years, we've spent some time looking at studies in regards to how God's Spirit's been at work in foreign lands. And oftentimes, sometimes He works through dreams and drawing people to then hear the gospel, the good news. And He's at work drawing people to hear the gospel, to hear Christ, and to respond to the effectual calling of God and become a child of God. And so God is in the calling business, and we'll see in the words of Jesus what He calls them to. And it's to turn from themselves and turn to this one Christ. Levi turns from what probably was his idol. Tax collectors, as you all know the story, if you've studied the Bible over the years, a tax collector, a Jewish one specifically, was someone who was not welcomed into the community, if you will. They were like an outcast. Some rabbis would write, if you go into the home of a tax collector, then you are unclean. That's how we look. You're unclean. You're not welcome because they're outcasts. They're traitors to their own people, because a tax collector, in essence, collected taxes from his own people, and those taxes would go to Rome. Rome would bid out to the highest bidder. A bidder would be chosen to give the taxes locally up to Herod up to Caesar, to Rome, if you will. And so they would have to acquire so many taxes to get up to Rome, right? And to levels of authority above them. But then anything they collected above and beyond was theirs. Make sense? And so the more you collected from the people, the more you squeezed out of the people, the more you got for yourself. And it was believed and recorded historically that many of the tax collectors were wealthy, were rich. We'll see Levi's going to throw a big party at his home, probably had the means to do that. It's coming from the people. And so outcast, traitor, kind of like a leper to the general Jewish population. Make sense? And Jesus, we saw this last week in chapter 17 of Luke, that He reached out to a leper. That's something most folks don't do. And most folks don't reach out to tax collectors. You don't reach out to them. You know, they're a hopeless cause, right? And He reaches out to them, and He calls Levi, and Levi responds and leaves everything. Probably, most likely wrapped up in that is the reality of his idol about probably money, possibly, or finances, or wealth, or power. We don't know all the details about his heart and his mind. But Jesus reached out to someone that most folks would say, hey, stay away from them. Especially if you are a person of God, if you're walking with God, if you're religious, then we segregate ourselves from them. We'll see that in a moment. We estrange ourselves from that kind. And that's exactly who Jesus goes to minister to. And the man follows Him.